What's up again, Vol Nation? I'm going to talk some women's hoops today. We'll do a preview Lady Vols, South Carolina tomorrow night. Obviously, to me, the biggest game of the season so far for the Lady Vols. And we're really at a point of, because I've made the broad prediction. I said earlier on, I said, they're going to get one of these teams at home, LSU, UConn, or South Carolina. We're down to two of those games at this point. I don't know how good that looks, to be honest with you, but I'll say this. The fact that this team just keeps so close to getting that big win. And really, to me, the only win I think we can look back on, or I'm sorry, the only loss we can look back on, scratch our heads, is that Vanderbilt game. Just a nightmare weekend last weekend for it. But, some of the same issues keep creeping up with this team since we've gotten to conference play. But Kim Caldwell did say she will be back on the sidelines tomorrow night. Kim Caldwell rules. Kim Caldwell's awesome. And congratulations to her and her husband on their newborn son, Connor. They say is the name. So cool, though, she's back. It's kind of what I'd read, that she would probably be back pretty quick. But, man, still, that's awesome. She rules. So happy to have her here on this staff. And, not just because of that, but just everything that's gone on so far with how she's building back the program. They've been competitive. I mean, it's just fixing some of these glaring issues that's coming up. And some of them, kind of, they reared their ugly heads against Texas. This is your biggest test of the year right here. No doubt about it, because South Carolina, they handled LSU pretty well yesterday. I know it was at home, but, even some of the announcers on that game were talking about, UCLA beat South Carolina, but right now, who's the better team? I mean, South Carolina right now in women's basketball is the standard. It just is. And the Lady Vols, I think last year, I'm not going to use the word tougher, but they played South Carolina as tough as anyone. They basically had them beat up here in Greenville, and due to inexplicable defense, they lost that basketball game, and which led to a coaching change. I really think that was the final straw, and it was just that inexplicable defense at the end. And at that point, I had not covered any Lady Vols basketball, but here in Greenville, I was probably a mile or less from the arena. We'd gone to a watch party watching that game, Yeehaw Brewing. Some of you tunes in will probably be familiar with what I'm talking about. Tennessee just lost to Kentucky in the men's game. Within like 15 minutes, then you had this debacle happen. And I've said it numerous times. That game bothered me so much more than the Kentucky men's loss did that day, because it was like, how did that happen? And that really kind of sparked me wanting to dive in to the women's game. I wish I would have gotten more into that coaching search. But anywho, this is your preview for the game. What are we looking at tomorrow night? I mean, Lady Vols still rank up at the top in the nation in scoring per game. The one thing to me, I look at the stats for both teams, and we're going to kind of break this down. Points per game, Lady Vols do average 93.4. Opponents, 69.4. 20, right at a 24-point difference per game on that. South Carolina, on the other hand, they're averaging right at about 82, but they're only giving up 55. So right at 27 points per game difference. So on average, the Lady Vols do score more. Now, I bet you if we compare, and I don't have the conference comparisons up, it's going to be a bit different if we look at conference play, because you're in these stats, it's the overall that we're looking at right here. So that's including a lot of these blowout games and stuff. On the season, South Carolina from the field, right at 47%. Three-point percentage, 33.7. Their free throw percentage, this is a big one, I think, in the women's game, is 76%. I look here at Tennessee, and they shoot about 45% from field goal, 34 from 3-point, 67% free throws. I've said it numerous times. Their free throws are going to cost them games. And Texas was a little better Thursday night. There's one glaring stat that really, to me, was the difference in that game. I would like to see them in that 70 to 75% range on that. Rebounding, the Lady Vols overall on the season, right at 42 per game. Opponents just below 36. So on average, the margin 6.2 difference. South Carolina, on the other hand, they're averaging almost 44 per game. Opponents 34. 9.4 is the margin on this. This, to me, is where the big discrepancy is in place. This is the one that concerns me in it, because the other night against Texas, Lady Vols got dominated on the boards. They just did. And in a 4-point game like that, I feel like that's been kind of the Achilles heel of this team since they've gotten in SEC play. Has been the rebounding game, as they've lost it numerous times. And they got killed on it against Texas the other night. You can look at, if I look back at that game against Texas here, one thing that stood out to me, of course, was that Cooper only had 7 points. And the fact they only lost by 4 was big. Whitehorn put them on her back with 21. And Spearman had a good game with 14. Cooper went for 7. Spear 6. Spencer 6. You're going to have a hard time beating the good teams when those three, that's 3 of your best players, account for 19 points between them. That's a tough one. Whitehorn, though, she was on 8 out of 12. Her mom posts on Twitter. It's pretty cool stuff to see as well. Talking about, she puts it all on the line. Ruby Whitehorn does. She's a great pickup for this program. And the good thing is she'll be here multiple years as well. Looking at those stats, though, Texas out-rebounded the Lady Vols 39-24. Assist to turnover ratios were pretty even. Steals, blocks, pretty even. Points. Here's the thing. The Lady Vols shot right at 53% from 3-point range in this game. That's really good. Their field goal percentage was 50%. Texas shot 50%. And they held Texas to 16.7% three-pointers. Here's the thing I'm noticing, though, in conference play. The Lady Vols in that game, they only took 17 threes, which I think is a pretty good number. A lot of these teams are playing, LSU, Texas now, they don't shoot the amount of threes that the Lady Vols do. They're more those, low interior teams. This team is built more for that high speed, high paced game. And I think, when you look at this game, we talk about playing 4 full quarters. It really kind of seemed to me the other night that fourth quarter was their worst one of the night. They scored 22, 18, 21, 15. A pretty solid game, to be honest with you. Pretty solid game. Again, to me, the big difference in the game, of course, free throws, 13 out of 19 for Tennessee, 15 out of 20 for Texas. They were better, but still, rebounds. That's where they have to fix it. And that's a concern I have tomorrow night against South Carolina, is the rebounding game. And that's one you just got to look at. South Carolina's main players here, scoring-wise, they don't have anybody that just jumps off the charts as far as, points per game. They're pretty even kill. It's kind of like the Lady Vols here. You look at points per game on the season. You got Cooper 17.8, Whitehorn 13.5, Spear 12.8, Spencer 11.3. Spencer 11.3, Spear Munn 11.1, Darby 7.8. Now, if you look at South Carolina, though, they don't really have that high. They're a different type team. Edwards, she leads them with 12.2. if I mispronounce these, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I did not. Fawali, 11.1. Papal, 10.8. Johnson, 9.4. Kitts, 9.4. But, you look at some of these numbers. Watkins, she averages 7.2 points, 6.1 boards per game. Kitts, 9.4, 7.5 rebounds per game. Joyce Edwards, 12.2, 4.8 rebounds per game. I mean, you look at just the assist. Papal, 55. Again, I'm so sorry if I mispronounce these. It's not on purpose. Raven Johnson's your top assist person for South Carolina. She scores 5.4. Based on what I'm looking at, and again, I don't watch a lot of these games. I watched part of that LSU South Carolina game. It's just a solid team. It's just a solid basketball team, top to bottom. And based on their minutes per game, they have their starters kind of. I mean, Edwards has only started one game. Fawali has not started any games. So Dawn Staley right now, to me, is the best coach in women's basketball. Obviously, you got Mulkey. Gino is still Gino along the way. But Dawn Staley has set a standard right now. And I think, yes, we can look back on Pat, the Lady Vols, their legacy and such. But right now, the Lady Vols are playing catch-up to Dawn Staley in South Carolina. How big would this be in year one for Kim Caldwell and this staff if they can get that big win against South Carolina tomorrow night? They're going to have to play 4 quarters, and I don't necessarily think they have to win the rebounding game, but you have to keep it competitive and close on it. To me, if you're shooting 33s or something, you're in trouble against this team. I just think you are. And, looking at South Carolina's averages as well, I'm trying to see. They shoot, they make about 6 per game on it, 33%. So they're attempting close to 20 per game themselves on it. If you can hold them at that, I think that's a pretty good number. That's not just a crazy, outlandish number, to be honest with you. But I'm not making a prediction on this one. This would be big. This would be a big one for this Lady Vols program. Now, does it, in the grand scheme of things, does it go matter now? No, they're a tournament team. They're going to be a high seed as far as, I think, a top 4 seed, barring that they don't have some kind of meltdown down the stretch. But, man, this will be so huge with so many close games. And, Kim Caldwell, Jenna Burdett, these players, man, they want one. We all want them to get that big one tomorrow night. It gets no bigger than South Carolina coming to Knoxville. My hope is the old Food City Center, formerly known as Thompson Bowling Arena, will be rowdy. It'll be packed. And we'll see, man. We'll see. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this team can do. And, a good way to test yourself is when you play the best. To me, you're playing the best tomorrow night. Go wrap up on that one with you as well. Frank, House of Orange, regardless of what the results are tomorrow night, it's always a great day to wear the orange.